Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for joining APDA for our episode of Unlocking Strength Within. I am pleased to share that we will be welcoming Kim Beuerman to our program today. Kim is a nationally board certified spiritual care provider and staff chaplain for Unity Point Health, Meritor Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin. Founder of Suggest Advocacy, she works with people affected by life-limiting illness and specializes in Parkinson's disease, dementia, and other progressive disorders. Kim's approach helps people with Parkinson's and their care partners to strengthen their spirituality, which in turn can lessen mood-related symptoms such as depression, apathy, and anxiety. As a trained palliative care specialist, her expertise allows her to offer an informed and compassionate approach to those she serves. Kim's comprehensive training in advanced care planning, legacy therapy, and interdisciplinary palliative care enables her to provide guidance that is tailored to each individual's unique needs and preferences. So, Kim, thank you so much for being here today and welcome to the broadcast.
Hi, welcome everyone. And I'm so glad that you can join us today. I hope you find this information helpful and that it motivates you in a positive way. And please, as you have questions, go ahead and submit them through the chat feature. It will make it so much more interesting with your feedback. A little bit about me. I'm founder of Suggest Advocacy, offering spiritual support to people with life-limiting illness. I'm also a staff chaplain with Unity Point Meritor Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin. I've been a board-certified healthcare chaplain for 20 years and have worked with people with Parkinson's and other progressive illnesses during that time. Our goal today is to improve quality of life with Parkinson's using current spiritual care approaches. We'll look at a whole person approach to healthcare, focusing on the spiritual aspect, often overlooked or confused with religious needs. We'll introduce 4 methods of spiritual strengthening that are shown to improve quality of life in Parkinson's, share some personal narratives, and offer hands-on opportunities using the worksheets that you'll find at the end of this presentation. And at the end of our conversation today, I'd like you to recognize that meeting spiritual needs is important to our overall well-being. To become familiar with 4 methods of spiritual strengthening, to understand the benefits of these approaches, and lastly, I'd like you to feel inspired to move forward in your life as I share real-life examples. Let's look at a whole person approach to treating Parkinson's, such as COPE-PD, the research-based program at the University of Rochester, led by neurologist Dr. Benzie Kluger. This slide illustrates 5 aspects of our whole person needs, including physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and practical. By attending to these interdisciplinary needs of any serious illness, symptoms can be better managed and people feel like their whole self is being honored. We are complex human beings and have many different needs. If these needs are unmet, we may experience pain, including physical, emotional, and spiritual. The physical realm is the area commonly addressed in neurology clinics and in healthcare overall. Our focus today is on spiritual emotional needs. Spirituality is personal and unique for each individual. Here is the definition that we'll use today. Spirituality is the search for meaning, purpose, and connection to ourselves, others, and something beyond ourselves, encompassing our beliefs, values, and practices. This connection outside of ourselves may be found in nature, a higher power, a faith community, family, friends, pets, or whatever makes us feel most alive. You may ask, well, why focus on spirituality? Well, dealing with Parkinson's can be challenging for everyone involved, and utilizing all your resources may help make life easier. Focusing on spirituality acknowledges our needs beyond the physical. It is often overlooked and yet important to many people. It's also non-pharmacological and has no negative side effects. And recent studies show strengthened spirituality helps improve quality of life for people touched by Parkinson's. So let's look at some evidence for a relationship between spirituality and quality of life. This 2020 study involved over 300 people affected by Parkinson's. They were given multiple screenings to assess for spiritual strength, quality of life, and Parkinson's symptoms. The spiritual wellness screening was divided into 3 subsets: meaning, peace, and faith. The conclusion of the study was a good correlation found between strong spirituality and increased quality of life. Also, that spiritual wellness is associated with improved non-motor symptoms such as mood, cognitive, sleep, and fatigue issues. And also that there is greater reduced grief and better overall coping ability of symptoms. Now let's look at a study with Parkinson's care partners. In this 2025 study, addressing spiritual needs and promoting spiritual well-being resulted in greater resilience, meaning, and joy in care partners' lives. Participants described ways of strengthening resilience through spiritual practices such as prayer, meditation, connecting with nature, or their faith community. This qualitative study concluded that Parkinson's care partners desire spiritual guidance and support in the face of their inability to mitigate patients' sufferings. They find strength in their faith and their community. Moments of joy and gratitude provide a sense of purpose amidst the struggles. When we speak of spiritual well-being, we need to recognize that's what spiritual pain or distress looks like. No one is immune to change and loss comes in many forms. Growing up, I had the privilege to live all over the world. Yet with that privilege came frequent loss of the familiar, home, friends, schools, and I had no control over when or where I would move. Although I gained great inner resilience, I struggled with similar issues as those with Parkinson's. It's very different, of course, my experience, but just like a Parkinson's care partner, I have a good sense of the existential concerns that those dealing with Parkinson's might have, including loss of autonomy and questions about what to expect next. Due to the progressive nature of Parkinson's, that uncertainty may be high. With Parkinson's, a person may experience loss of hopes and dreams because of changes in their ability to do what they could before. This may include the role they played in their family or community. For example, maybe they were the family cook or a volunteer at a nonprofit organization. Or like my friend George, who loved to go fishing with his granddaughter at the local river spot. And now that he's in a wheelchair, he chooses not to go any longer. This is a hard loss for everyone involved. And we'll come back to George later. It also could be a change in career or retirement plans. You may have dreamed of traveling across the country or visiting Europe. These shifts often lead to questioning one's identity. Am I the same person when I can't do what I did before? This concept of loss and grief is very important and deserves some extra attention. In many cases, loss causes grief, and it's okay to grieve, to feel sad. Although typically in the US work world, we have 2 to 3 days of bereavement after a significant loss, and then are expected to be over it. This is usually not a possibility. Grieving is a part of the healing process, that is, being with our sadness. And it often makes us and the people around us uncomfortable. And because of this, we don't like to talk about it. We need to give ourselves permission and the space to grieve, and other people around us should be sensitive to this need. Excuse me. Other challenges may include an increased sense of burden upon others, like when a person needs assistance to get dressed or other activities of daily living. It could be questioning one's faith. If you're religious, you might be angry at God for this situation, or you may doubt your faith in the fairness of the universe. Isolation and loneliness is also common because sometimes it's just too hard to get out. Acknowledging and processing grief due to these challenges is important to well-being. Our society doesn't always recognize or honor loss and grief aside from certain events such as death. But these different forms of loss that we're talking about are very important to make space for. So we might ask the questions, why me and why now? Spiritual support focuses on existential issues that people may face when dealing with Parkinson's. You might ask, what did I do wrong to be faced with these challenges? And you might ask also, what next? How will my family and I manage with all that is before us? These are common questions when faced with difficult issues, such as an unexpected life-limiting diagnosis and certainty about the future. The good news is there is hope. Hope with spiritual strengthening. Through strength-based spiritual care approaches, you can build greater resilience to face whatever may come your way. As the studies showed that we looked at, addressing spiritual needs may help improve one's mental health outlook, targeting depression, anxiety, and apathy, 3 common mental health struggles in Parkinson's. They also showed a correlation between strengthened spirituality and overall quality of life. And some examples of what spiritual resilience looks like is the ability to imagine potential future, your connection with self and others. It could be a supportive family, friends, or community. Practices that bring us back to the moment and to our inner wisdom, grounding in faith of something beyond ourselves. For instance, religion, nature, or the belief in universal goodness. And a few more examples of spiritual resilience are gratitude and ability to look beyond our challenges, acceptance of what is, a sense of humor, courage to be vulnerable and honest. A man just recently mentioned on Substacks embodies some of these strengths. Pete, who has aggressive brain cancer, said during an infusion session, I have glioblastoma, but I don't know what I'm going to make out of this. I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this, but in the meantime, I'm making pesto. He grows the basil and he calls it besto pesto. Pete's ability to accept what is and to make the best of the situation with humor helps him maintain a high quality of life. So now we'll look at 4 evidence-based approaches to strengthening spirituality. These are professional spiritual support, life review, goal setting and visioning for the future, and meditation. Professional spiritual support may be found with a healthcare chaplain, trained spiritual counselor, or faith community leader. The need for spiritual support through professional chaplains has been demonstrated to be important in healthcare settings. Overall, healthcare chaplains help to decrease spiritual distress, offer hope and a sense of being heard, encourage processing of loss and grief, and increase spiritual resilience through affirmation of self. To better understand the role of the chaplain, we'll turn to one of my recent visits. I met Peter while he was being hospitalized for pancreatic cancer. At 72, he had lived a life full of adventure and hard work. He was a retired farmer, ex-Marine, and wasn't happy to be in the hospital. He missed the comfort and familiarity of his home, and he didn't know what to do with this chaplain at his bedside. But once he realized that I was there simply to hold space for him and all that he was going through, he relaxed and shared a little bit about his life. Right before our second visit, his nurse told me oncology was coming to visit him with an update about his prognosis, and it wasn't good news. During this visit, we began an informal life review process. Storytelling turned out to be something Peter loved to do. The oncologist showed up and proceeded to give him the bad news. And Peter chose comfort care over aggressive treatment. When she left, I affirmed his clarity of mind in making those difficult decisions, his trust in himself and whatever happens next. He wept briefly, said he needed to rest, and then asked if I would return. During our last visit, Peter shared many poignant moments of his life, including befriending an abandoned wolf cub in the Dakotas, the gratitude he had learned about the connection that we all have with nature from his Native American grandmother, and with sadness shared about coming back to the US after serving in Vietnam and the harsh greeting his troop received walking into the San Francisco airport. After his comments, I summarized his strengths of courage, caring for the natural world, and a deep spiritual resilience. He concluded that he had lived a good life and felt ready to face the next stage. He thanked me with a big smile and proudly said that I could use his stories in my book. I believe Peter felt heard and demonstrated increased spiritual resilience, sharing not only his joyful moments, but also some difficult ones. Next slide, please. So yes, logical conclusion. Thank you. So the logical conclusion is, if you're experiencing spiritual or existential distress, it makes sense to work with a healthcare chaplain. Just like if you have depression, you would seek the help of a licensed mental health provider. Now, how do you find a professional spiritual support person? Ideally, each neurology clinic has access to professional healthcare chaplains, often connected to the clinic's palliative care team. If a chaplain's not readily available through your clinic, contact your other providers for further spiritual support resources. Our second approach is life review. Life review is a guided conversation through preset questions. It's a narrative-based program using video or transcription. It's the production of a permanent record to be revisited by the storyteller or to serve as a legacy document. And it can be a reflection of one's past experiences, memories, and life events. So what are the advantages of life review? It encourages storytelling about your life. It may help process unresolved issues. It enhances your memory and gives you a structured format to recall memorable moments. It stimulates your brain also in the recollection process. Under Life Review, there are various platforms that you can use. There's StoryCorps, Hear My Voice, and Dignity Therapy. StoryCorps is an online application. It's very popular and it's one that you can do at home. Their website has many resources and options. Go to storycorps.com. And for different language options, contact their customer service department. Hear My Voice is a great format for someone who finds spirituality important. Here are a few of the questions asked. Who is the first person who taught you about faith? Are there any spiritual practices that have been meaningful to you? How does your spirituality guide you as you look toward the future? Dignity therapy is the process that we're going to focus on today. And it has 9 thought-provoking questions, including key moments of your life, accomplishments you're most proud of, when you felt most alive, and words of wisdom to pass on to your loved ones. So the process takes approximately a month or so. Can do it a lot faster if you have the possibility of doing all the work in a short time. But generally, you'll meet at home or in a clinic setting. It's audio taped and then transcribed into a rough draft. Interviewer edits it as storyteller dictates the changes, and then the final copy is given to the storyteller. Then the storyteller can decide how to share this legacy document. So on the website, Dignity and Care, which is the official website for Dignity Therapy, here are the results from a satisfaction survey that they put out. 91% of the respondents were satisfied with the process. 76% found a heightened sense of meaning. 81% found it offered opportunities to help their families. So I'd like to share a personal narrative with you. I was fortunate enough to meet Bill Ryan last year at a meeting with the American Parkinson's Disease Association, and I was thrilled to meet another person from the East Coast. Bill was diagnosed with Parkinson's 14 years ago, and with some setbacks, he's been able to be active in his community, leading a monthly support group and participating in rock steady boxing and ping pong. We started Dignity Therapy in mid-August this year, and several weeks later, we completed the interview section. And then he left for a major bike ride with 3 friends. So here's Bill. Bill is on the far right, and he's with his 3 biking buddies. When I asked Bill what was the hardest thing about it, he said just keeping up his stamina was challenging. And of course, there was sharing the one hotel room with 3 people. Not sure how that all worked, but he did say he had an amazing time. When Bill returned, we discussed how he felt Dignity Therapy might have changed him. He shared that it helped him to deal with the uncertainty he sometimes found on the bike trip and to speak honestly about his concerns. And here's a quote from Bill. Dignity therapy helped me to look forward and not just reflect on the past, to focus on the positive, on things I can improve and things I can hope for. Dignity therapy encouraged me to imagine positive things and future outcomes of my life, rather than just focusing on the decline. I am now recognizing little successes, like speaking louder, which gives me more confidence to trust in myself and try other things. It also helped me to think about how I want to be remembered. He also shared that the process helped him put things in perspective and to see the bigger picture. Bill realized how much he'd gone through and the gratitude that he has for other people who have helped him. Dignity therapy also helped him approach the topic of self-affirmation and to reconcile different elements of my life. So is this possible to do at home? Absolutely. There's a great benefit of sharing your story with others. Whoever facilitates the interview, though, should create a safe space for the storyteller to share the significant stories. So there are many different formats online. I mentioned the one StoryCorps, but specifically for dignity therapy, it is suggested that you use a trained facilitator to get the most from the process and to avoid potential conflict if something difficult is revealed, especially if it involves the person conducting the interview or someone close to them. So the third approach we're going to look at is goal setting for the future. Given present limitations, goal setting can help to reframe one's life, claim current abilities, and celebrate what is, no matter how small it may seem. Using key findings from life review, a person can set goals for the future, reconciling previous activities and current wishes to increase joy, hope, or whatever serves best. Imagining one's potential future can encourage a sense of agency, hope, meaning, and purpose. And within goal setting is the opportunity to do advanced care planning. The key thing in planning ahead for medical treatment decisions and lifestyle choices is to know what matters the most to you now. Doing this may give you a sense of control and hopefulness, knowing that your wishes will be heard. The type of advanced care planning I'm suggesting takes this concept further than usual. It's more than naming a healthcare power of attorney or determining code status. It's an opportunity to look at your goals, determine what matters most to you and your family, share with others involved, your family and your care team. While there are various platforms available, we'll focus on the Conversation Project, specifically on their workbook, What Matters to Me. This workbook can be found on the Conversation Project website. Before we look at this in detail, I encourage you not to assume that this workbook is just for someone approaching end of life. As with my client, Agnes, who thought that to be true and disregarded this booklet when I first showed it to her, several weeks later, after a neurology appointment where they introduced the idea of some additional neurological testing, Agnes questioned the purpose of the testing, asking me if I thought it was necessary to know everything about her condition, especially if there was no acceptable treatment for it. So after that conversation, she did realize the value of going through a booklet such as What Matters. This is also available in Spanish. So I'm just showing you some close-up shots of what the booklet looks like. This first section addresses how you understand your current health. And a friend of mine, Sally Ann, agreed to share some of her answers here. The first question is, what is your understanding of your current health situation? And she talked about her inability to walk without a walker. And then the question, how much information about what might be ahead with your illness would you like from your healthcare team? And pretty much like Agnes said, she said, I only want to know about things that something can be done about, something that's acceptable to her. And then this section about me talks about what are my good days? What does a good day look like for you? For Sally Ann, she said to play the piano or walk through the garden. It could be to play with your cat. It also asks, what are your hard days? What does a hard day look like for you? And that could be a lot of different things. And maybe you can't get out of bed. That is what Sally Ann said, when she can't get out of bed on her own or feels lonely because no one from her family has called. Why is it important to share these? Well, these questions can help make others understand more about the person filling them out. And then this last section we'll look at is about your goals. What are your most important goals if your health situation worsens? And these might be some things you'd like to be able to do in the future. And it helps, again, for everyone involved in your care to know what's important to you. And then this section, it helps people to start thinking about some crucial questions around healthcare options, such as, like, as a patient, I'd like to know only the basics about my condition, or do I want to know all the details of my condition and my treatment, or somewhere in the middle? Also, how much medical treatment are you willing to go through for the possibility of gaining time? You could be on the one end, nothing, I want no more, I don't want any more medical treatment, or I want everything, I want to try everything possible. And again, this is really important to just start thinking about. And now we're going to move to our last spiritual strengthening technique, which is meditation. So while sitting upright might be challenging for some, alternate positioning are suggested, such as reclining with supportive pillows or simply lying on a bed. Two forms of meditation are mindfulness and centering prayer. Well, most of you have probably heard of mindfulness. I don't think you can help but hear about mindfulness in our world these days. Centering prayer is probably a little less known to you. Meditation in general may increase dopamine in the brain, which helps us think more clearly, have better balance, and improved mood, clearly important in Parkinson's. In a 2023 study on mindfulness and Parkinson's, two groups were formed. One did mindfulness and the other strengthening exercises. The mindfulness meditation group had greater improvement in psychospiritual than the conventional physical exercise. And a few more details. The group using the strength training was compared to this group using mindfulness meditation. The MM group showed significantly better improvement in depressive symptoms compared to the exercise group. But both showed a small to moderate effect on cognitive performance. And then we'll look at centering prayer and Parkinson's. Centering prayer is a contemplative practice of meditation developed over time from ancient Christian wisdom teaching. It is an updated form of prayer meditation that is done simply by choosing a sacred word and sitting in the silence of God's presence. In a 2022 centering prayer study with a very small number of participants, patients practicing centering prayer seemed to show a reduction in Parkinson's symptoms. Can we go back to the slide on the resources? Oh, I guess that we don't have that. Well, there it is. So there are numerous online apps, as you can see here. So go ahead and look them up if you haven't already. The ones that I do offer are all fairly straightforward and no cost to you, which I think is wonderful, except for the mindfulness based stress reduction, I do believe that there's a fee for that. Okay, well, we're going to take a few minutes here to process all of this information that I've just given to you. So I'd ask you to just take some time to find a comfortable position. And bring your attention to the natural physical sensations of your breath. And that might be the air coming through your nostrils or the rise and fall of your belly. Just stay with that physical sensation. Gently returning your focus to that place that you feel your breath whenever your mind wanders. And just give yourself another moment or two. Give yourself time to be here, to be present, and to take in all this new information. All right. So we're just going to go over some of the hands-on exercises that I suggested at the beginning. And this is the very first one is, and just take a minute too to think about this. Think about it. And if you have any examples that you want to enter into the chat, please go right ahead. Think about the moments that you felt most alive and why. So examples might be births, graduations, weddings, whatever comes to your mind that you can think of that made you feel just most alive in your life. All right. So as you can see, I have a couple examples from my life, which include sailing the Atlantic Ocean for 3 nights when I was in high school, the birth of my 3 children, and my 60th birthday party. All right. We're going to go ahead to the timeline. And with this one, just think about those moments that you're most alive. And you could start with your birth, which would be kind of the logical place to start. And then, enter into whatever else might kind of stick out in your mind for your timeline. Often it's like, high school graduation, college graduation. It's just good to look at your whole life in a line, in a perspective on one page. And it just kind of gives you a nice overview. All right. Well, let's go on to the next slide. And let's look at when you felt most alive. And the question that I would ask you is, did you also feel joy or another emotion? I just like to go back to George, I mentioned, who loved to fish with his granddaughter. And what about if he could reimagine a better access spot to get to the river, but that he might need some help maneuvering the wheelchair? In this adaptation, he might need his granddaughter to help him push through the tall grasses to get to the fishing spot. And even though you might be reluctant to ask for help, what a wonderful thing for your granddaughter to be able to do. There's so many lessons for her, including realizing that someone who is in a wheelchair can still do significant things and that it doesn't have to be a barrier to their relationship. So if you think about that for yourself, ask, what does give me joy and or meaning and purpose right now? And if you're not doing what gives you joy, why not? So imagining your potential future, I love this quote from Viktor Frankl. When we no longer are able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. When we change our perception of ourselves as we develop a new identity and integrate the challenges into a new lifestyle, a new normal for ourselves and family. And our next slide is the identity exercise. So I ask you to look back 10 to 20 years. What were the most important identities that you had? It could have been with work, with family, and community. And if there's any points that people would like to share, go ahead and put it in the chat. And then think about who you are now as the culmination of everything you've gone through. And think about how you would complete this sentence. I am an advocate or a partner, a friend, etc. And these would be good things. These exercises would be great for you to do, at a time when you have greater leisure. And there's just 2 more slides I'd like to look at. My dreams without boundaries. And these are things that you'd like to do in the future, taking into consideration what gives you that feeling of being alive with no regard to any limitations, physical, financial, or logistical. And this is just purely fun. And then being a little more realistic, what are some things I'd like to do and ways I'd like to be in the future? Taking into consideration what gives me joy or makes me feel most alive, including any restrictions I may have. Well, it's been my pleasure. Oh, let me go back to summary. Yes. So I hope now that you can recognize that meeting spiritual needs is important to our overall well-being, to become familiar with 4 methods of spiritual strengthening, to understand the benefits of these approaches, and lastly, I'd like you to feel inspired to move forward in your life. Please consider volunteering for COPE PD studies on improving Parkinson's symptoms. Go to their website, copepd.com. And if you haven't explored all that APDA offers, go to their website. It's full of great information. And one of the best resources are their support groups. It's been my pleasure speaking with you today, and I hope the best for everyone listening. Don't hesitate to reach out with any further questions at kim@sagesadvocacy.com. The links to resources and bibliography are available upon request.
Thank you so much, Kim. That was such a thorough presentation, and I really loved the worksheets and exercises that you shared. So we've had several questions come in from people who registered for the program. And the first question I want to share is a question that asks, how can a person deal with the frustration of physical discomfort from Parkinson's, interrupting their thoughts and concentration in their practical and spiritual practices, including art?
Can you repeat the middle of that?
Yes, I will repeat the question.
Yes.
So
Yes,
the question
please.
was, how do you deal with the frustration of physical discomfort from Parkinson's, interrupting thoughts and concentration in spiritual practices, including creating art?
That is an excellent question. And I mean, there are a lot of different possibilities. One thing for sure is, um, trying some of those mindfulness exercises just to find a sense of calm. And especially if you're trying to move into doing art. Not sure exactly what type of art, but for sure it's, important to stay flexible also, to stay flexible and to, reach out to other people who might be able to give you some ideas on how to adapt.
Absolutely. Thank you. And the next question that has come forward is actually something that has been asked by a few people, is how does an atheist fit into talk about spirituality? How do you see an atheist's life perspective in light of instilling the hope of living more fully with Parkinson's?
Oh, another excellent question. So, when I talk about spirituality, as I mentioned at the beginning, um, we're all spiritual in different ways. And that spirituality is really what gives us meaning and purpose. It's that deep sense of ourselves. Um, so whether you believe in God or not, you will still find, great strength in doing some of the things that I talked about that would help with your spiritual resilience. Um, for instance, connecting with others, to make sure to not be afraid to reach out, to be part of a support group, um, to connect with nature, whatever kind of feeds your spirit. That's the main thing. So yeah, everyone has a spirituality for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think that we have a couple of questions specifically about people who are looking to explore meditation as part of their spiritual experience. And one of the questions is, does Parkinson's call for a special approach to meditation?
Well, as I mentioned about, perhaps not being comfortable sitting upright, or, even just sitting still can be difficult. We don't have to follow, like, you know, what we think of typically as meditation. You don't have to just sit in one place. You could, do a moving meditation for that matter. You could, I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities. Whatever your mode of transportation is in terms of getting around, if you're using a walker or a wheelchair, or you could move and then you could, do some of the same practices again, like finding your center, and you can do that while you're moving. Um, so I think it's important to think outside the box when it comes to Parkinson's and meditation, for sure. Mhm.
Absolutely. And exercise is something that's so important for people with Parkinson's. And that really links to what you said with moving meditation, even while walking or, just doing any sort of movement like a boxing class or yoga or Tai Chi, engaging in that moving meditation. And
Absolutely.
yes, and I think you touched on this a little bit in your sharing about the study, but this is specifically around the connection between meditation and tremors. The person has asked whether meditation can help reduce tremor.
So some of the studies that have looked at meditation definitely help increase dopamine. And I believe that that could be helpful. If you can create some kind of a meditation practice, even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes a day, at least initially, you might find some reduction in symptoms. That's what the studies are saying. So I think the truth is to just go ahead and try it and see how it works for you. Try the different resources that I mentioned before. Um, if you have any specific questions while you're going through that process, go ahead and send me an email. I'd be happy to walk you through some different ideas.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing that. And
sure.
someone else has asked, they said they have lost their vibrant sense of spirituality. Could this be due to apathy that comes with Parkinson's? Or is there another cause that they should be looking for, to sort of help them reconnect with that sense of spirituality that they had and no longer are feeling?
Yes. Well, the first thing I would say is it's absolutely normal to feel that. Um, we talked about the change in identity, and you wondered, like, you know, things that might have worked for you before just are not working as well as they did before. So maybe we have to explore other options. I don't know exactly what might have been working before with this person, but let's just say, your vibrant spirituality was fed by being part of a faith community. And maybe now that's just not working for you. So, there's all kinds of options. I mean, you could create or, look into like an online community of some sort, maybe people exploring their spirituality. Um, Again, that if that person's interested in reaching out to me, I do have some ideas that I could sort of direct them towards. Maybe starting a spirituality and Parkinson's group. That could be very helpful for some people. Um, and again, just try exploring new things. Maybe before you didn't get out in nature that much, and now that would be something to really try, is to get out in nature.
Absolutely. And
That
Kim,
might.
you mentioned the idea in your response just now about a faith community, and someone has, just shared their experience. They said that they were just diagnosed with Parkinson's last October, and they're feeling less stressed about it now than they were when they were just diagnosed last year. But they've
Mhm.
asked, does this mean that I have to let my church family know about my condition?
I think that we always want to honor our own need for privacy and autonomy. Um, if it, I mean, I would say the benefit of sharing any kind of struggles that you have with a community of faith or community of friends or whatever that community is the benefit of them being able to be more supportive of you, and kind of understanding what's going on for you. But that being said, again, it's always your choice how much you share. You can give as much information as you wish, or, you can, or not. But I would say I would encourage to go ahead and be willing to be vulnerable and to see what comes of it.
Yeah, thank you. And we have one final question that we have time for today. And the person has asked, how do I deal with the day-to-day apathy I feel?
That is a great question. So, in apathy, sometimes people feel very guilty having apathy because they think that they should be feeling differently. I think, again, to just acknowledge that it's there, to speak about it with somebody that you trust, and to come up with a plan about ways to find motivation, because I know apathy is based on motivation, to find things that maybe you're now motivated about, and they could be very different than before. Maybe it's being part of a support group, or maybe it's advocating for other people who have Parkinson's. So, you have to kind of reach within and look to see, what will motivate you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a great, really positive note to wrap up our discussion today. And, just thinking about hope and motivation. And Kim, just again, thank you so much for sharing this really practical and grounded advice for people in, ways that they can strengthen their spirituality in, many, many different ways and approaches. I want to encourage all of you to reach out to Kim. If you have questions, you can visit her online. You can reach out via email. And, Kim, thank you so much on behalf of APDA and our audience today. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your unique expertise with us in just helping people find meaning in the experiences that they're having as they live with Parkinson's. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, Kim, for sharing your expertise with us today. And for all of our audience, I hope that you join us next week for our episode of Thriving Through Occupational Therapy. And that will be on October 16th. We have a wonderful opportunity to ask our expert occupational therapist, Monika Lukasiewicz, anything. So bring your questions to that program on October 16th. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again for being with APDA for the broadcast today. Have a good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Leslie Chambers, President and CEO of the American Parkinson Disease Association. Thank you so much for joining us today on our program. Every day, APDA is committed to providing helpful programs just like this one, as well as a wide variety of support groups, exercise classes, and educational programs to support the Parkinson's disease community. Whether online or in person, APDA is here for you every step of the way. You can find all of our upcoming virtual events on our website at apdaparkinson.org/events. We keep you posted on our social media channels as well, so make sure you follow us there. You can also connect to local resources and events through our nationwide network of chapters and information and referral centers. Remember, we're just a click or a phone call away. If you've enjoyed today's broadcast, I hope you will consider making a donation to help keep programs like this possible. Every gift, large or small, helps APDA support people living with PD through thoughtful programming, reliable resources, groundbreaking research, and more. Please visit apdaparkinson.org/donate today to support our critical work for those with Parkinson's. We are so grateful for your generosity. Thank you.